So, Baines and one of the cleaning staff. There's always a woman involved. Am I to gather that some practical joke has got out of hand?
Headmaster, sir. Good evening, sir. Come to give me a caning, sir. Would you like that, sir?
Keep a civil tongue, boy.
Now, come on, everyone. I suspect alcohol has played its part in this. Let's all just calm down. And who are these friends of yours, Baines? In fancy dress?
Do you like them, Mr. Phillips? I made them myself. I'm ever so good at science, sir. Look. Molecular fringe animation, fashioned in the shape of straw men, my own private army, sir. It's ever so good, sir.
Baines, step apart from this company and come inside with me.
No, sir, you will send us Mr. John Smith. That's all we want, sir. Mr. John Smith, and whatever he's done with his Time Lord consciousness, then we'd be very happy to leave you alone.
You speak with someone else's voice, Baines. Who might that be?
We are the family of blood.
Mr. Smith said there had been deaths.
Yes, sir, and they were good, sir.
Well, I warn you, the school is armed.
All your little tin soldiers. But tell me, sir, will they thank you?
I don't understand.
What do you know of history, sir? What do you know of next year?
You're not making sense, Baines.
1914, sir. Because the family has traveled far and wide looking for Mr. Smith and all the things we have seen. War is coming. In foreign fields, war of the whole wide world, with all your boys falling down in the mud. Do you think they will thank the man who taught them it was glorious?
Don't you forget, boy, I have been a soldier. I was in South Africa. I used my dead mates for sandbags. I fought with the butt of my rifle when the bullets ran out, and I would go back there tomorrow for king and country.
Etc., etc. Run along, headmaster. Run back to school. And send us Mr. Smith!
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always I am joined by...
Scott.
By Got.
Scott.
Oh, okay, Discord filtered out your S, and so all I saw was you lean over and go, Got. So, hi Got, it's nice to see you.
And that stands for Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah, it does. Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Anyway, this week we are continuing our Family of Blood deep dive with the actual episode Family of Blood, not the last one, which was called... I always forget what the other one's called. Human Nature. There we go.
Well done. We only named a book after it, but...
yeah, but I didn't even know it was a book before last week, so there's that. But this week is Family of Blood, an exceptionally good episode that we're just going to basically dive right into, since this is part 2 of a two-parter. You know, if you want the history on the writing and the background stuff like that, go back and listen to episode 1. Why would you listen to part 2 without listening to episode 1? You'd think that would be a strange question to ask, but more often than not, part 2 is more popular than part 1.
I think Tomb of Cybermen beats... Tomb of Cybermen part 2 beats Tomb of Cybermen part 1 for some reason.
Most of our two-parters, the second episode does better.
It's almost like... The second part is always better?
Yeah, but like, why would you listen to the second part without listening to... You'd go in with no context.
Who needs context when you watch a show, you know?
Sure.
You don't need context to know our opinions.
Yeah. I mean, this is a show, you don't even need continuity. So, context went out that window with it. But
there is no continuity, no context, no other con word.
Convoluted. There's lots of convolutedness.
There is. So, did you see Attack of the Cybermen Part 2?
Probably. I don't. I've blocked a lot of it from my memory. There was like aliens under a rock or something, and they were all women. But let's talk about a much better episode with Family of Blood, shall we?
Hell yeah.
If I could do this instead of you, then I would. I'd hoped. But my hopes aren't important.
He won't love you.
If he's not you, then I don't want him to. I had one husband and he died, and I never thought ever again. And then so,
And it was real, it wasn't. I really thought.
let me see. Blasted thing. Blasted thing. Can't even hear it. It says nothing to me.
They're all safe, aren't they? The children, the grandchildren. Everyone's safe.
Everyone's safe. And they all send their love, John.
It's done. Thank you.
Did you see?
The Time Lord has such adventures. But he could never have a life like that.
And yet I could.
What are you going to do?
So our episode begins exactly where we left off last week, and if you remember last week, we ended it with some peril as Martha Jones has a gun to her head, and it was Joan, that was her name, John and Joan. Joan had a gun to her head, and
Martha Jones, Joan, John.
Russell T Davies was in a bit of a naming convention. But Joan has a gun to her head, as does Martha, and the Doctor has to decide which one he wants to keep alive, or really, rather, the aliens are like, come on, Doctor, show yourself. Get out of this human's body and become the Time Lord, otherwise one of these people are going to die. John Smith, who is, of course, the Doctor, is kind of just standing there, mouth agape, bumbling buffoon as he is as a human being. He's almost useless as a human, isn't he?
He's very useless, but that's the point. He doesn't know aliens exist, and he's very confused. I would be too, you know? If I was in that situation,
Yeah.
what would you do? What would you do if you were in that situation?
I would turn into a Time Lord, which is apparently what the aliens are wanting me to do. So I guess I would just do it.
Right, but how would you do it?
I don't know. I figure that out later. But the day is saved when the little boy, who's definitely not 12, but is in fact 17 years old, opens up.
I still can't believe it.
He's got a youthful face, opens up the stopwatch, which contains the Doctor's Time Lord energy. Don't think too hard about it. Which causes the family of Blood to be like, smells good in here. Enough to distract them for Martha to take charge of the situation and hold one of the family of Blood hostage. I think she holds her friend who got turned into alien hostage, and then the negotiations begin. With Martha and the son of mine, who's the very good actor boy, and he's on fire this episode.
He is on fire, and also it's great to see a companion just handle her own. You know, we're so used to just watching the Chibnall era, which I mentioned every episode, but it's like with Chibnall era, I can't imagine any of the Chibnall companions doing this. Really, I guess Dan with his walk.
Dan is the best companion. I do unironically love Dan. I think he's great. You could maybe have Yaz do it if she remembered she was a police officer and remembered that she has training for this sort of thing.
She would need to write it in her hand.
Yeah, she would need to write it on her hand. But yeah, I really like this Martha taking charge moment because it really plays into who Martha becomes when she, especially for that finale where she has to travel the world, saving the day. You know, she's one of the few companions who is just a straight up badass on her own without the Doctor.
And then she, of course, leaves the Doctor and goes off to join UNIT, which you completely buy after watching this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is a really strong companion. I wish she had stayed on for a bit longer, but, you know, she appears for like half of Series 4, and she's also in Torchwood the next year. So I guess she's in the show enough.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do wish for more.
Big Finish, baby. Big Finish. But Martha basically leads everybody to evacuate the building and run away. And telling John Smith to leave with Joan and that as well. And then she, pushes Mother of Mine back into the aliens and walks her way out of the room as well. She gets grabbed by a scarecrow at one point, but that's just for added tension. She gets out with basically no real bother. And then everybody goes running down the streets and back into the schoolhouse where John Smith has decided, I'm going to take charge now. I'm going to get control of this situation by waking up everybody and giving them guns. Which, from one point of view, I understand where he's coming from. Aliens are attacking the town, and these are training soldier kids. On the other point of view, I don't know, find the watch maybe.
But he doesn't know what the fuck is going on, does he? He's just like, oh my god, these guys are attacking us. I don't think he's really even 100% sure for aliens. It's just like, oh my god, this is like some mad prank or whatever. This is
some sort of strange gun that they've got, like some sort of weird cult, which plays in, when Baines is like, we're the family of blood. I'm like, I wouldn't think these guys are aliens. I'd think they're just like he's gotten himself involved in some sort of cult.
But the doctor just going immediately, John Smith going immediately to guns. It's kind of like he's a baby. He's brought up in an environment just of war, basically pre-war. And it's like he's just soaking up everything around him like a baby. Yeah. And it's like, it's pretty interesting stuff.
While this is happening, the family of blood approach the schoolhouse and they send off Sister of Mine, who's the little girl with the red balloon, to sneak into the house because she is small. While the others just kind of walk up to the front door. While this is happening, the headmaster is like, hey, why is everybody pulling guns out? Oh, this is very silly and naughty behavior. In which John Smith defends his actions and basically catches the headmaster up with what's happened. In case you missed the recap and missed last week's episode, here you go, quick reminder.
I don't know how he missed last week's episode. He was in it. He should have watched the entire thing and known what's going on.
He should have at least read the script,
or at least watched a recap at the beginning of the episode. He would know completely what's going on.
Very unprofessional behavior.
Yes.
But he then decides that he's going to go negotiate with the family of blood, and he steps outside with a guy. I don't know who the guy is, the guy that gets shot. I don't know who that man is.
I would imagine it's like with Deputy Head or whatever we fucking called it back in those days.
But did your school have a headmaster?
Yeah.
My school did. No, we had a rector.
What the fuck is a rector? For a kid's school, it sounds awfully too close to erector. And I imagine there's going to be a lot of jokes about that.
Oh, again, the last name of our rector was Hornberry.
Wood. Okay, Hornberry is also very good.
Hornyberry, the erector.
Oh god.
Yeah, just asking for it really at that point. Did them no favors. But yeah, no, we didn't have a headmaster. We had a rector. I don't know why.
Well, I had mainly headmistresses. They were all women for some reason. I don't know why.
No, ours was a dude. And then he got replaced by a woman when I left school, but no idea.
I remember my headmistress in primary school would never let me out of being like a student council member. I hated it. Just sitting in the teacher's staff room doing nothing.
We were
talking about some kind of like fundraiser we were doing. It was just like, fuck off. I want to go upstairs and learn.
I never signed up for student council for that exact reason.
I was elected, and I was forced.
Why did you run? Why did you run for
I
election?
didn't run.
Did your school do mandatory? Everybody.
Pretty much, it was just everybody votes for someone, and somehow I got the most votes for some reason. I think it's because everybody hated me, and they were like, "Oh my God, Scott would be perfect for this."
Surely it would be the other reason. Everybody's like, "God, Scott's going to represent us. He's going to bring us the true values that we want represented here in the student council."
I did nothing as a student council member. I did nothing.
Don't think there's ever a student council member that's achieved something.
It was awful.
Yeah. But back to the episode, the headmaster comes out to the family of blood, and he has a very old-fashioned way of approaching this, where he's going to Baines, who is a member of his school, and he's trying to protect him, where he's like, oh, I hear that there's been a prank that must have gotten out of hand or something. Baines, if you come over here, we'll sort this. You know, if you separate yourself from these people right now, we will protect you, basically, is what he's saying. He's, you know, because he's one of his boys. He's one of his, goes to his school, which, you know, it's probably not too far from the truth. It's happened before.
What do we call it again? He's kind of part of the student council himself. He's kind of like the head boy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
it.
head boy sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like this scene. The guy who plays the head
yeah.
teacher is great, and also Son of Mine parodying his body's host is just perfect. It's so good.
It goes into this huge monologue about where he's like, do you think they'll thank you? And the headmaster's like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you know, we've been traveling all over searching for the doctor, and we saw what happens next year. You know, World War I, the world's on fire, and your boys will die in the mud, you know? And it's like, do you think they're going to thank you for everything that you've taught them, that it's going to be a glorious way to go? It's like, Jesus, this is an amazing speech.
The weird thing is, he kind of opens up a conversation by being like, what do you know about history?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you know about next
future?
year?
What do you, yeah.
But I guess history kind of does repeat itself, so...
Yeah.
Even though it really doesn't, you know?
But, Baines, Son of Mine, then shoots the deputy head or whatever, and the headmaster goes back inside. And then they are like, okay, action plans, people. And we get this montage of them, you know, barricading the house and loading weapons.
There's also a point in that scene where Son of Mine rips the arm of a scarecrow, which shows off basically it's a scarecrow. There's nobody inside of it, which was a concern for like BBC censorship. Just basically, the kids aren't shooting an actual person. It's a scarecrow we're shooting.
Fair enough. Although, I mean, they did establish that in the last episode when the guy put his entire hand through his chest.
We did have to reestablish it.
Yeah. But they're setting up the barricades and stuff like that while the family of blood gather their scarecrow army. But then just before the moment of attack, Sister of Mine sends in a psychic message being like, hey, the doctor's planning something, don't attack just yet, okay? And so they hold off on the attack. The weird young kid whose character name I don't remember is also like hiding behind a cupboard at one point and gets called a coward and pulled up into the fight, and he's still holding on to the watch where the doctor is kind of like communicating with him through the watch, telling him like, don't reveal me just yet, keep me hidden, which is an interesting storyline that's continuing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about the doctor's consciousness actually being in the watch.
It makes you question, who is John Smith?
Yeah.
You know, and what happens to John Smith? I guess they kind of answer that in this episode, isn't they? Where John Smith has to kill himself so the doctor can live. Yeah.
But it's like also John Smith kind of remembers sometimes that he's the doctor, sometimes. But I guess it's because he's in close proximity to the watch.
And the consciousness is coming back in. Yeah.
But also about the scarecrows, would you be scared of these scarecrows? Because
they're
scarecrows.
I was scared of them. When I was a kid, they were terrifying. No, but they were terrifying. You know, the way that they move, the animated straw, their faces, you know.
I mean, sure, but Son of Mine just showed you how easy it is to rip off.
But that was one of them that wasn't resisting it or trying to get you. You know, it was there just relaxed, ready to be torn apart. I'm sure if they were in like attack mode, that they would have the strength of a man. Otherwise, what would be the purpose of them? You know. So I feel like when they're attacking you or trying to do something to resist you, that they were restraining Martha. You know, they managed to restrain and grab a bunch of people. Granted, it takes them they need to encircle somebody completely to actually capture them. But you know, so maybe it's 4 or 5 are equivalent to one person, but they've got hundreds of those things.
True. Even if you don't really see hundreds of those things until for a few scenes you do, but most of the time it's just 6 standing around.
Yeah, but that's because they couldn't. The family of blood couldn't afford to pay the wages of that many scarecrows. So.
Fair enough. They are expensive. Scarecrow actors are hard to come by.
They are. They had to animate that straw alive in real life. It's a miracle.
Insane.
The episode continues with some good old-fashioned racism as Martha and Joan are sorting through the doctor's belongings, looking for the watch, and Martha's trying to explain to Joan more of who she is and how she knows all this stuff. And she's like, I can help. I'm a doctor, or rather, I'm training to become a doctor. And Joan's like, ha, but you're a woman and also black. And which Martha's like, and she lists off all the bones in the hand. Which Joan's
pop quiz, hot shot. Name all the bones in the hand without looking at the screen or remembering.
You've got your little finger, your ring finger, your middle finger, your index finger, your thumb. And then I think the one that you need to pay a lot of attention to as I'm showing you this is the middle finger. Wow. That's probably the most important one for you at this moment.
It does remind me of, did you ever watch Tweenies as a kid?
Yes, I did.
Whenever they did a finger song, they stuck up the middle finger, and it was always funny. There was daddy finger, and he would stick up the middle finger at one point. Good times, good wholesome times.
I don't remember. I was very young watching it, so it flew over my head. But Joan then kind of leaves defeated, like, oh, well, you read that in a book. She left, and Martha leaves as well, continuing their search. We then go to John Smith and Joan, where Joan's like, hey, are you even real? Tell me about your history right now, and while we're in the middle of trying to save everybody. Let's tell me about your childhood. In which the doctor can give facts, but he can't give details, basically.
Yeah. It's basically because the TARDIS gave him the memories, but it's just memories based off like Wikipedia.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
And then he's like, does it matter do you really think that I'm not real? But I'm in love with you, kissy kissy. And then Joan's like, oh, that's cool. Please don't go and get kids murdered. And John Smith's like, hands are tied. The murder's got it. The kids are gonna die. I'm afraid. Nothing I can do about that. But I'm gonna go.
But I do love how both John Smith and Joan are kind of like people based on their surroundings. Like 1913 is racist, so Joan is kind of racist. 1913 is also like, oh my god, we're going to war soon, I guess. So yeah, of course, John Smith is not a good man when it comes to war.
Yeah, well, it's a very old-fashioned way of looking at war, which was changed after World War One. Because World War One was originally called the Great War. It was the war to end all wars.
And it was. There was no war after that.
That is very true. It's been a time of peace since then.
The only war since then was the Time War.
And we've covered that in our 50th anniversary episode. But we then cut to the very young-looking 17-year-old who is sitting with a machine gun next to his classmates, and he's like, hey, don't worry, pal, you're not going to die because I have visions of the future, and we're going to die in a different battle together. In which the guy's like, what are you on about? And then the little boy just gets up and runs away.
No. Tim uses the gun and then he catapults backwards because of how powerful the gun is, because he's only like 2 feet tall. He's a small 10-year-old man. Yeah,
it is remarkable genetics, isn't it? How young this guy looks.
Yeah, we keep flashing forward to war scenes, and I guess it's the point. He looks so young, which is why it's so shocking to see him in a war scenario.
Yeah. But there would be people. He's not the first person who's 17 and looks like a 12-year-old. There would have been people in World War One who looked that young, that were 18 years old or younger if they lied. In the trenches. But he runs off and he sits with the watch, and he's like, oh, this watch is important. I need to do something with it. And then the little girl shows up, and he's like, I could beat up a girl, which I thought is what he was going to do. I thought he was like, because he was like, you've got the strength of a little girl. I am being trained in a military school. I could beat you up right now. But instead of doing that, he just shines the watch in her face, which scares the little girl, but lets the entire family of Blood know where the doctor's consciousness is, which was a dumb play on his part.
Yeah.
Why, just go up and punch her.
Yeah, the idea of the strength of a little girl reminds me of a part in the book where the little girl takes over the form of like a nurse or somebody, and she still has the proportions of a little girl, even though she's like 6 foot tall, but she's still the weight of a little girl. So there's a point where one of the other family members like pats her on the back and accidentally sends her shooting across the room.
That's so convoluted. Anyway, while the family realize where the consciousness is, we build up to the attack, and we see all these shots of scared young men and young boys holding guns. Some are wiping away tears as they await the scarecrows to attack. It's a very cool, I'd say cool. It's a very tragic scene.
Yeah, it's really well directed, this episode.
Yeah, and then the scarecrows attack, and we get our action sequence where their guns going off and scarecrows are going down. I was strange. I don't think I understand how they killed the straw. You know, obviously Baines reanimates them later on when he's like, "Oh, me reanimate," but like bullets stop straw.
I guess there's a point where the bullets go through and there's no more like tissue to connect to the rest of the body. That makes sense. So if you like behead a straw man,
yeah,
the body won't be able to work anymore.
Why not?
It's silly. It's silly Doctor Who, but under the disguise of this is serious because it's kind of serious this episode. Even though it's still silly, it's Doctor Who. Doctor Who will never not be silly.
They kill all the scarecrows, and then the little girl comes in, and weirdly there's no scarecrows on the floor. Don't know
magic disappearing scarecrows like Terry Malloy in Attack of the Cybermen.
Yeah, they got
when he just vanishes on the TARDIS floor, even though he's a dead body.
Yeah. But this is the headmaster goes, "Oh, little girl, come here, come to safety. I'll keep you safe. You know, there's bad people about." And then Martha's like, "She's a murderer." And then he's like, "Shut up." And then Joan's like, she is a murderer." And then John Smith's like, "She is a murderer." And then the headmaster's like, "Yeah, but she's a little girl." And then obviously he gets shot and dies. It's a really dumb way of him to go. Why would he, ignore three people being like, "She will kill you." Just because she's a little girl.
After you just watched like your employee just get killed like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
With a similar weapon. He should know aliens exist at this point, or something more going on.
Everybody should know aliens exist at this point, but nobody does.
True, but not in 1913, which is fair enough because not as much alien invasions happened in Doctor Who's universe, and also there's no television. I guess there is. No, there's not.
But how will they watch Doctor Who?
Good point.
Anyway, John Smith, under the pressure of Martha, then calls the retreat of everybody. He's like, "Okay, boys, back inside, orderly fashion, get away from this battle." As the family of blood come in, and they're like, "Okay, everybody come back alive and attack now. Ha ha ha, chaos in the house." As things are kicking off. This episode really is very much action. Non-stop, really.
It's an action set piece. We've run to another location. Action set piece. We've run to another location. Action set piece. We run to another location.
Yeah.
But it never feels repetitive or boring. It feels non-stop. It never fails to keep my attention, it's a really good episode.
It is
so far.
And then we hear a call, and we see Father of Mine has got a hold of a certain blue box.
Which blue box is that? Is that Rubik's Cube, which is all blue for some reason?
Yes.
That's my favorite kind of Rubik's Cube because
it's
you
already
can
solved.
Solve it.
It's already solved. Yeah.
There's a great point where all the family is just like, "Is that the boy you were looking for? No. Is that the boy you were looking for? No. Is that the boy you were looking for?
Wait,
no."
Which was their entire plan.
Yeah.
Because until the young boy opens up the watch upstairs to escape out the window, they were going to go through every single person inside the house, one at a time, until they found the one with the watch.
I guess Tim did save him from murder because there's a point where they're going to murder the four boys who just questioned, and then Tim opens the watch and distracts him somehow. He magically saves the day.
Well, he's psychic, so maybe he knew it was coming. But the looking at checking, going like Is this the one you're looking for? 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 No? Okay, bang. Is this the one you're looking for? 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 No? Okay, bang. It's not an effective way of
and
doing
also
a search.
they could be lying. And also when they shoot the boys, their clothes disappear as well. So would the watch disappear?
Yeah. But
Because everything disappears on them.
I mean, the little girl's the one that saw the watch with the young boy. But
true.
like, there's nothing saying that they're not passing the watch amongst themselves.
That's a good point.
The episode continues with the family shouting outside the TARDIS, being like, "Hey, we've got your TARDIS, ha ha ha!" And then at this point, Joan's basically like, oh, "Okay, you're definitely a Time Lord because you drew about that box in your dream journal." While John Smith is still denying the fact that he could possibly be this extravagant alien.
But yeah, at the same time, if I was Joan, I'd be like, "Hey, wait, you could have seen that box before, the box was here."
I don't think that police boxes were around in 1913, so I don't think Joan would have seen a box like that.
I'm saying that she could have considered, "Oh, you've seen that box somewhere around town before."
Yeah,
because it's obviously right there in front of her. So obviously the box does exist, but maybe she doesn't think it's an alien spaceship.
Surely she would have seen it around town as well.
Maybe it was hidden somewhere, because it was hidden somewhere.
She's been living in this town longer than him.
No.
It's a peculiar box that says police. It's an alien ship. It's the only explanation for it.
Now I need to find out when a police box was made.
When did they first get made? I'm going to think it's like the 50s.
Box. Fucking Google autocomplete. I didn't want stop being used. Start being used, you dumbass. Fighting Google. Call boxes for use by both police and trusted members of the public were first installed in Chicago in 1880. That doesn't really help.
Chicago, that's not exactly the countryside in England.
I mean, it's close enough. Chicago has grass. England has grass.
True.
Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But either way, they start running again, and then Joan's like, "I know somewhere we can hide, Doctor. Follow me." And then everybody follows her.
They basically go to the Cartwright's house, which is the family of the little girl. But I guess she just theorizes that.
She's like, the little girl killed everyone. She killed her whole family, And she's got this great line where she's like, "Oh, how easily I accept these things," where she's like, "This is this horrible thing I've just said. How easily I just accept it to be true,"
Which is also, it's weird for her to leap to that conclusion. That I kind of do wish we could have seen the little girl kill her family, because that would have been a great reveal. The little girl comes home or something, and then just kills her family.
I guess, but I mean, like, if I'm Joan and I've seen at this point 2-3 people disintegrated in front of me, I'm just gonna assume everybody's dead if I don't see them, But this house scene really goes on for a very long time, and a lot gets covered here, and all of it is brilliant. Because there's nothing I like more in Doctor Who than our characters sitting in a room together talking, and this is where David Tennant's performance as John Smith really starts to break through into exceptional, when he becomes a big cryy man.
God, yeah, it's where I was so impressed as a kid just watching David Tennant just cry. He's so vulnerable. It's just so perfect. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment where he slips back into being the Doctor, because Timothy is in the room with him, and he gives the Doctor the watch, and he just slips into the Doctor. And it's like, holy shit, we're watching David Tennant just slip effortlessly into 2 different roles.
Yeah. And the whole time he's having this back and forth debate basically with Martha, like, don't I deserve to live? Don't I deserve to have a life, as John Smith? And this doctor man who never even considered the possibility of falling in love with somebody, I could just give the watch to the aliens, and that way I get to live and they get what they want and they'll go on their way.
I kind of have a problem with the whole "why didn't the Doctor consider love" line. It's like the Doctor was running for his life. Of course he didn't consider love. He was too busy trying to escape from the family of blood.
I suppose, but he considered pairs.
It's a good point.
You know, he was like, don't let me eat pears, but, you know, falling in love, A-okay. So I don't think running for his life had anything to do with it.
But yeah, this whole scene, most of this scene is kind of lifted from the book, so it makes more sense in the book where I think it was Joan who says, why didn't the Doctor consider love? Because the Doctor basically uses the human form as like a holiday just to escape for a little bit. And of course, the Doctor wouldn't consider love because his incarnation of the Doctor was kind of like a loveless creature who wouldn't love anyone. But David Tennant is someone who loves quite a bit. This is like the third relationship David Tennant has been in.
This is David Tennant's Doctor on rebound from Rose. He's not ready to love. He's still not over Rose, you know? So
I really don't. I kind of go back and forth between the relationship with Rose. As a kid, I really loved the relationship, but now it's like it kind of taints the whole David Tennant era for me.
he is obsessed with her.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've spoken, I think, at length about how much we don't really like Martha's characterization of simp for the Doctor, while the Doctor simps for Rose. But, like, I still love it. Like, even if when I go back and watch the episodes and, you know, the tensions there, or whenever David Tennant sees Rose and he goes, or whenever he hears the words bad wolf, I'm like, oh, my heart breaking, yes. You know, how much of that is influenced through the nostalgia of I watched this as a kid? I don't know, but I think a large chunk of it is just because it's a really well-established relationship within the show, you know?
To a certain extent, I think it kind of ruined the show in some way, because if you remember, Matt Smith was young and hot, and he kind of had a relationship with Amy for a little bit. He kind of had a flirtatious relationship with Clara. I mean, he turned into Peter Capaldi, and everybody was like, he's too old.
He's not sexy. Yeah, he's not a sexy man,
and,
even though
and
he
it was
is.
it was kind of a Peter Capaldi era where a lot of fangirls kind of tuned out of the show because the Doctor wasn't hot, and that was kind of laid in the foundation of the 10th Doctor era. The Doctor's supposed to be young and hot and kind of be flirtatious with his companions.
Yeah, I can see that complaint, definitely. It's why I'm interested to see what Russell does with this new incarnation, because obviously it was Russell T Davies that brought in flirty, sexy, kissy Doctor, and Moffat took him out with Matt Smith was not a sexual Doctor.
Yeah. Even though he did have scenes where he kisses Amy on her honeymoon night, or when Clara
River
spanks
Song.
him on the bottom, and River Song.
Yeah, but like
There was a lot of that.
you know, he wasn't really in love with Amy as much as it was like, oh, you're a pal. He was in love with River, but it took a long time for him to be comfortable even kissing her. And he was never in love with Clara. Like,
and speaking of that whole Amy scene where Amy just advances the kiss on her, it's kind of rapey.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talks about that these days.
yeah, different era. But and then Capaldi wasn't sexual either, but he still was with River. You know, he still has that amazing Christmas special where he just spends like several decades with River. On that planet.
We've talked about Capaldi and River Song, and that relationship really works for me because it feels earned, and and obviously River Song is an alien herself. I don't know how old River Song is supposed to be, 100 years old maybe. Who knows? But it feels more appropriate rather than a 900-year-old man
with a
moaning
19-year-old girl.
over. Was she even 19?
She was 19 in season 1.
Okay.
So
For some reason, I was thinking 16, but that's Buffy.
no,
maybe.
no, that's definitely more feels like a Buffy thing than a Doctor Who thing. No, she was 19 in season 1. So what, like 2021 when David Tennant stuff happened. But yeah, I think River's a much better romantic partner for the Doctor because they're similar yet different. You know, and also that whole time travel love story is just magnificent, where they keep meeting out of sync. Just beautiful.
Which reminds me, Stephen Moffat's series for Time Traveler's Wife was apparently good, but it got cancelled after season 1. That kind of goes off of what he established with River Song. It's kind of based off of that. I guess River Song is based off of the Time Traveler's Wife rather than Never Lay Around, because the book came before the show. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, we got wildly off topic there. During this very, very amazing discussion, it basically the doctor or Joan tells Martha and Tim to leave so that she can just chat with John Smith alone. And they have this like heart to heart about like whether he should go or not. And she takes the watch and she's like, I don't see anything when I'm holding this watch. And then he takes her hand with the watch in between, and we get this amazing, heart wrenching flash forward basically through their lives where they get married and have kids and settle down. And eventually we see Peter Capaldi dying in his bed. It's David Tennant, of course, but his old man makeup is like, oh, it's Peter Capaldi. Dying in his bed, a happy, satisfied man. And he's like, why can't I have that life? Why don't I deserve to have that life?
Yeah, I remember just crying my eyes out during this flash forward scene. It was so heartbreaking. And as old David Tennant, Peter Capaldi, is dying on his deathbed, he says to Joan, are they safe? And that was taken from Cornell's dad, asking about his kids when he was ill. And it was just all about peace, knowing that family is all right, that he could just go. But Cornell's dad is apparently still alive, so it's great.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking. And then he's staring at the watch, and we cut to him walking into the Family of Blood's spaceship. The Family of Blood during this time, by the way, have been bombarding the town with explosives. Just aerial bombardment left and right. And then John Smith comes bubbling in, hitting a bunch of buttons on his way in like a little bit of a buffoon. And he's, as we think, going to give them the watch, perhaps. Or maybe he's not. Maybe it's a ruse. Oh no, who knows what's going to happen in these last 10 minutes of the episode. I bet that the aliens win and then the show gets cancelled.
Yeah, that sounds like something that would happen, Doctor. He stays as a human the entire time and just gets murdered. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. But our episode continues as John Smith is bumbling through the spaceship, and he's offering his watch to the aliens. They take a sniff and they're like, oh, you still smell human. Awesome. Watch is ours. We're still going to kill you, though. And they throw him into more buttons. They click open the watch and nothing happens. And then they're like, what did you do? They throw the watch at John Smith and then catch and snap. Suddenly he's the Doctor in a brilliant... I mean, it is like this really highlights the David Tennant's performance here. In like one movement, he goes from being John Smith, this scared, whimpering man, into the Doctor, charismatic and taking charge of the room.
Yeah. It reminds me of whenever you watch like a Simpsons cast member do all the voices, and it's like, holy shit, we could do all the voices straight after one another.
Yeah.
It's amazing. As a kid, did you catch that he was actually the Doctor and not John Smith in this scene?
I don't remember. I don't think I did.
I think I thought it was the Doctor when he started switching everything, but when he acted human, and I was like, either the Doctor is a really good actor,
yeah,
or he's just John Smith.
Yeah,
but I guess
the Doctor's just a really good actor.
Yeah.
But once he's flicked all the switches and the ship's alarm starts going off, and now as the Doctor, he's like, oh, the ship's about to explode. You shouldn't have let me hit all those buttons. You should run out the ship right now. And they all run out the ship, and there's a big fiery explosion, and then we get our first voiceover at the end of this episode. You wouldn't expect there to be more than one voiceover wrapping things up, but this episode really likes to wrap things up. And our first voiceover is a very, very good one, and is the one that I think everybody remembers more so than the second one. And this is the voiceover with son of mine being like, oh, this is how he tortured us. The Doctor wasn't running away from us because he was scared. He was trying to be nice to us because of what he would do if he caught us.
It's the shot of David Tennant just looking down at the family as he's being lit by the flames. That shot always sticks in my head as just, like, being one of the best shots of the 10th Doctor. It is amazing.
The oncoming storm in action. And we find out that father of mine, he like ties up with chains that were forged in the stars of in a dwarf star or something.
Yeah, the
He
heart
throw-
of a Dwarf Star.
Yeah, he throws Mother of Mine into the event horizon of a collapsing star. He traps the Sister of Mine into a mirror, every mirror. So if you ever see somebody darting past you in a mirror, that's her.
Again, it's one of those things where it's like real life situation and it's making that scary. Mirrors are scary now.
Yeah. And then Brother of Mine, he turns into, aptly, a scarecrow to watch over the fields of England, frozen in time forever. And it's this really awesome shot of the Doctor, a wide shot of the Doctor walking across the hill with the scarecrow there. And I'm like, that would be a perfect place to end this episode. Obviously, there's characters, things we need to wrap up that need to happen, but that's such a beautiful shot.
My question to you is, do you think anyone ever went up to that scarecrow and realized there was a man inside? And I was like, holy shit,
Oh my
there's a
God.
man inside.
There's a skeleton under here. Yeah.
Like the Doctor just changed history because he's going the Son of Mine is going to be like the study of like a million studies, you know? Everybody's going to be like, how is this guy petrified in time? What's going on here? How is this possible?
Yeah. I don't know. I've never thought of it. But he then goes back to the house where Joan is, and they have a very frank discussion about how the Doctor's not turning back into John Smith, and how John Smith is basically dead. And then the Doctor's like, "Come with me, be my companion," as the Doctor does whenever he meets somebody that he half likes.
As long as it's a blonde girl, he wants her in.
Come into my TARDIS, please. And Joan turns him down, basically being like, John Smith is dead. You're not John Smith, and I need to, I wouldn't be able to look at you without seeing him, and that's just not fair.
Yeah, she spends the entire scene just looking out the window, and it's just, you can feel the heartbreak in her eyes. It's perfect.
Yeah, and when the Doctor leaves, accepting her answer of no, she looks at his journal, the John Smith's journal of stories, and she holds it tight. And I'm about to do some headcanoning here. So if you remember,
Cushion movies.
What?
She
No,
made
the
Cushion movies.
That would be good. That would be good. But if you remember back to Torchwood,
Yes.
in the background we saw a poster for a Doctor Who convention.
Oh yes.
Now,
Okay.
this is because the descendants of this lady discovered the journal. And they were like, oh my God, our grandmother was this amazing writer. She had this awesome sci-fi story idea, but because she was a woman in the early 1900s, nobody wanted to give her sci-fi ideas any time of the day. So we're going to adapt it into this hit TV show. What should we call it? Doctor Who. And that's how Doctor Who became a TV show about, and that's how you've got things like the Slovene and the Daleks and stuff on that poster for the Doctor Who convention, because it's this TV show that just so happens to also mirror reality because it's based off the journals of an alien mistakenly taken as a sci-fi book.
I mean, this actress does come back as the great granddaughter at the end of time.
Yeah.
When another episode that has a million endings.
Yeah, she does. So I'm telling you, it works. And if it doesn't work, it's a really good idea for a book or a movie. Actually, I think it might just be, what's it called? Oh my God, the Star Trek thing. That's not Star Trek.
The Orville?
No, the movie.
Galaxy Quest?
Galaxy Quest, yeah, because that's about a bunch of... Actually, that's the reverse of that. That's a bunch of humans making a Star Trek TV show, getting broadcast to aliens who think it's historical documents, and using that to adapt their science. This would be opposite Galaxy Quest. Galaxy, we'll call it.
It would be such a great Doctor Who episode if he lands on Earth and all of a sudden he's treated like Harry Potter. He's a fictional character, and he has to figure out what's going on.
And the real villains beep the meep.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I am so excited for Beep the Meep. But back to this episode of Doctor Who. God, fuck, I forgot what I was going to say now. But as the Doctor is saying, do you want to join me, become my companion? I can just imagine Martha in the other room being like, hey, bitch, what? Excuse me? What about me?
You're trying to replace me again. Again, you're trying to replace me. The Doctor never thinks about Martha. Which is why she leaves, honestly, and it's like fair. Like,
but at the end of this episode, obviously, just the next scene, Martha's like, well, you remember the things I said about how much I loved you? I didn't really mean that. The Doctor is aware of how much she loves him, but
He doesn't
never
care. He does not feel the same.
And he never lets her down gently. It's not like, hey, Martha, I just like you as a friend. Is that okay?
Yeah. No, he's like, yeah, we'll just won't talk about it. We will just ignore it.
I'm too awkward to talk about this. I'm just going to walk over here now. That's what the 13th Doctor would do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Except even the 13th Doctor reciprocates the love.
Yeah, they're pretty open with their feelings. It's other people's feelings they don't want to talk about. But as they're about to go back into the TARDIS, the young boy Tim comes back, and he's like, "Oh, Doctor, I'm gonna go fight in World War One now." And
Even
he's
though
like,
I'm 10.
and he's like, "Before you do that, take this watch. It doesn't do any magical abilities. I just don't want it anymore." And Tim takes the watch and says he's going to go off and fight in World War One. We then flash forward to World War One, where
before he goes, the Doctor's like, "Oh, you're gonna love this bit," meaning watching the TARDIS disappear.
Yeah.
You know what he would love even more? Seeing the inside of a TARDIS. Wouldn't that just be amazing?
Why don't you offer Tim to travel the universe? Is it because he's not a sexy lady Doctor? I thought it was an open seat, but nevertheless, we flash forward to World War One, where we've been seeing glimpses of through Tim's psychic connection, but now we see the full scene where it's him and his classmate running through the trenches as voiceover happens. The voiceover is basically just explaining why World War One happened, where it's like this Duke gets killed by this other guy from a different country, which drags another country into a war, which drags another country into a war, which drags another country into a war. Really, it's the dumbest war. And then, the bomb's about to fall on their head. He's like, step to the left now. They jump to the left and avoid the bomb, and they survive the war, and everything's lovely and dandy. And then we fade through into the modern day, where we see presumably Tim as an old man. I'm going to guess that he's about 300 here, since he looks about like 70 odd. And just going off the genes that this guy's apparently got, I don't think they could have chosen an old man that looks any different. Like vast, he looks like he doesn't look similar at all.
Yeah, I know, but as an old man, he wouldn't look as he would as a 10-year-old compared to a 90-year-old.
Well, yeah, he's 17, not 10, but yeah.
I still don't buy it.
But we end on the "We Will Remember Them" poem about really any soldiers, but based off World War One soldiers, as they're putting on the red poppies. It's a very different ending than I was expecting for this episode. It very much takes a turn into Remembrance Day.
It's also how the book ends, so it just. I think it's perfect for it,
Yeah, it's good. It's just that with there being two voiceovers back to back, I'm like, this episode doesn't want to end. This is an episode that really just wants to keep going. But besides that, I do love this episode. It's phenomenal.
It's a really fucking good episode, If I was to recommend any episode of Doctor Who, this might be the top. To the people who think Doctor Who is just a silly kid show, I'd be like, no, it's not. Watch Human Nature, because it's really hard hitting,
Yeah, I'd say no, it's not. Watch Absorbaloff. It's the most. I don't remember what the episode was called.
We should do that on Valentine's Day. I'm just saying this now.
It's not good. It's not a good episode.
I haven't seen it as a kid since I was a kid. So I wonder if it still holds up, because I remember really enjoying it.
I watched it 6 months ago, and it really didn't like it, but I didn't like it as a kid either. So yeah, maybe we should watch it and just have two different opinions for once. But actually, we have different opinions all the time. Your opinion's always wrong. Yeah, I think that this is probably the best one, if not the best two-parter of all time. One of them, both episodes are solid, and the second episode builds off the first one perfectly. There's all strong performances around, from the villains to the heroes. The special effects hold up, the story still resonates, everything is perfect with these two episodes.
And I wish there was more Doctor Who episodes that actually focused on the character of the Doctor, because this is one of the rare episodes that it's like, yeah, this is who the Doctor is, even though the Doctor is barely in it. He's only in it for 10 minutes. Focuses
on his flaws as well, not just him being a space god. It's he's a space god, but he doesn't think about other people. Every now and then he will, but he can be really selfish and not explaining things when he wants to be. He's a flawed individual, not perfect.
But you know, in modern Who and the Chris Chibnall era, the Doctor has no personality, so it's
Yeah.
it's a huge difference.
Yeah. But Scott, I don't
Yes?
even know what we've got coming up next week. Do you?
Well, it's a good thing I have a list pulled up in front of me. Next week we are doing the news, which is always a good time. You can email us at whowatcheswho@gmail.com. I'll get that out of the way now.
whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com.
Fuck's sake.
You completely pathetic loser.
I used to have to say the email all the time, but then
Yeah.
you started doing the email all the time,
Yeah.
so I forgot the email. I'm out of sync. I'm out of practice.
whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com.
But in August we've got a huge, pretty big lineup with Sarah Jane Adventures, Death of the Doctor. It's the first time Russell T Davies actually wrote for 11th Doctor, which is kind of wild. And then after that we've got the 9th Doctor classic, Dalek. And then the week
You
after
just say
that
it's the first time Russell T Davies wrote for the Doctor.
for the 11th Doctor.
Ah, right. Okay.
And then after Dalek, we've got The Haunting of Villa Diodati. I always stumble on that for some reason.
Which is a Jodie episode, isn't it?
Yes, and I would say it's one of her two best.
I would say, and then after that, because September, spoiler alert for September, is Chris Chibnall month. We are looking at some of Chris Chibnall's best, some of his not so good. But I think Haunting of Villa Diodati is that's our kickoff to Chris Chibnall month, you know. Starting it a few weeks before we actually dive into it, but that's to prepare us for the Chibnall. I want to be hyped for Chibnall month because I want to be surprised. I want to be surprised by him.
We've got really good episodes coming up in Chibnall month. Do you want to list them off now?
Yeah, so this is for September, which feels far away, but I assure you is extremely close. We have got Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, very fun episode. Adrift from Torchwood, which I don't think I've seen.
Nope.
Ascension of the Cybermen, and The Timeless Child. So I'm very excited to rewatch Timeless Child and see if, with the context of Flux, if I hate it still.
We shall see.
But yeah.
There are things in The Timeless Child that I like. You know? Some things. But not much.
Yes, but next week it is the news. It's been a medium news month, I would say. Not our busiest, not our quietest, medium month. But
we another month just passed and we've still got nothing on the Centenary Special. We've had nothing on the Centenary Special since we saw the trailer at the end of Legend of Sea Devil.
I can't believe we're at the end of July, and I don't think Chris Chibnall believes it either, because it is rapidly approaching. But until then, we will see you next week with our monthly news roundup. Goodbye.
Bye.